I believe that self-reflection is a very great use of one's time, especially when it comes to self-improvement. Specifically, taking inventory of the choices we've made, why we've made them, and how their impact affects the flow of current events in our lives. It's like watching the law of cause and effect at work. Welcome, I am Daisy, your hostess. In this video, we will flip through the pages of the book titled Which? Impulse, Instinct, or Intuition? By Charles Tulsi Taylor. This is part one of a two-part video where the author explores these three concepts and how they influence our choices. We are being challenged to reflect on the origins of our decisions and to consider the importance of understanding these inner drives. He discusses the idea that instincts are hardwired patterns of behavior that emerge automatically in response to specific stimuli. Now, if you give yourself a moment of pause, you may be able to pinpoint some of your very own hardwired behavior and how they have become automatic responses to very specific situations in your life. You don't even have to think, and you're already reacting, acting, choosing, doing, right? And the author talks about the value in that, as well as the subtleties of impulse and how it differs from instinct and intuition. So much that the author declares impulse to be a key component of human decision making. Imagine how many of your choices are made based on simple spontaneous urges without any thorough deliberation. How does that happen? What prompts that behavior? And what an amazing thing this human being is when we do understand our own beingness, right? And if you've been curious about intuition, the author explores scientific studies and examples illustrating how intuition operates in various fields, from art to science to everyday life. Mostly, the author will share the importance of self-awareness and critical reflection in distinguishing between genuine intuitive insights and biased or impulsive reactions, and how understanding these influences can improve our decision-making and help us better navigate complex situations, which, the way I see it, from a life well lived, the world has become more complex, and every little edge we can give ourselves to navigate through the muck and mire is worth time exploring and acquiring these invaluable tools. So before I turn the page, please do take a minute. Let me know you stopped in by leaving a comment or hitting the like button. Which? Impulse, Instinct, or Intuition? By Charles Tulsi Taylor. Forward. This book deals with some of the simple laws of the universe and explains some of the mysteries mankind has been searching for. By drawings and pictures, some of the laws we are using unconsciously every day are made plain so that we can profit by the knowledge gained. Where no law is, there is no sin. Paul says, "Sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace." You must recognize the principle involved to get practical results. Every thought of doubt produces negative results. This book is offered to suggest a new line of reasoning or investigation whereby its readers may learn more of the law and get a better understanding of that truth spoken of by the Nazarene, which would set them free. Before you can successfully use a law, you must understand something of its nature. Therefore, it is natural to ask, what is impulse? Impulse is the vicious manifestation of mind at war with itself. It is neither reason, instinct, or intuition, but is forceful energy expressing itself under planetary influences without the use of any of the above. People have absolutely no self-control when swayed by impulse. They do a thing and then ask themselves what they did it for. Why did they do it? Impulse often expresses itself in various ways and may be accounted for as the accumulation of substance from vicious thought expressing itself. Impulse is more often wrong than right. For people with thought that will benefit all of humanity have such self-control and poise that impulse plays a very small part in their lives. They do not cultivate it. Impulse is purely a product of the physical, the same as instinct is of the mental and intuition of the spiritual. What is instinct? Instinct cannot reason, but may be manifestation of the reasoning or mental mind. Mind. The Bible speaks of it as the beast mind, for it is that part of mind animal uses. Instinct in animals or man has been placed there by the reasoning power of man. Instinct is inherent in the soul and functions in the subconscious mind. Its great charge is the welfare of the body, and self-preservation is its great concern. In time of peril, it grasps means of rescue. It uses all instrumentalities at hand and all the acquired and natural knowledge possessed to achieve desired results. Ultimately, it is manifested in walking and talking and in the performance of all acts, good or bad. It is not a reasoning faculty, though in most part the product of reasoning, for it may be educated and developed by conscious thinking and habitual practice. Instinct is the expression of mind by which we walk, talk, and perform the acts both good and bad that our reasoning has gathered for us to express. What is intuition? One writer has expressed it as being God. The gambler calls it his hunch. Emerson called it the oversoul. Socrates was not less known in antiquity for what he called his daemon or genius than for the wisdom of his philosophy, and his daemon never induced him to do anything, but on the contrary, prevented him when he listened to his promptings. He also called it the voice of the soul, and when the voice did not come to him in his trial, he made no defense and thought it was good that he put off his mortal body. For the voice that is neither argumentative or insistent had been his guide all through life, and it failed to show him what defense to make. Intuition is spiritual, not mental. It is the voice of spirit again bringing you to your consciousness that which you knew of old. It is the act of the mind by which truth is immediately perceived. Intuition is right, regardless of appearances. It is that place within where man and God are consciously one. Intuition is the key to true genius. It knows no law except the law of self-expression. Intuition was called the akasa by the ancients. The Akasian records are those that come through intuition and are always right. You have intuition. This book will tell you how to cultivate it and use it, and explains impulse, instinct, and intuition in such a manner that you can understand and know when you're using any one of the three. Their use makes you what you are and will make you what you desire to be when used understandingly. Chapter 1. A quote by Pope. All nature is but art unknown to thee. All chance, direction without canst not see. All discord, harmony not understood. All partial evil, universal good. And spite of pride, in erring reason's spite, one truth is clear: whatever is right. End of quote. Creation is the most important thing mankind is interested in or concerned about, for we are continually creating. Yet, in the last analysis, there is no such thing as creation. Creation, as expressed in sacred or profane writings, means simply changing one form of substance to that of another form. This substance, from which all manifestation comes, is spirit or God. I am the image of God, therefore I must be spirit. Spirit never dies, but is continually expressing God in thousands of different forms. I, man, created in the image of God or Spirit, am continually bringing God into manifestation on every plane of physical expression that I am conscious of. This I do by the use of the principle of motion and number, without which there would be no physical manifestation. I am spirit, and to continually remain conscious of my physical being, I must continually use spirit to create. Therefore, I live, move, and have my being in spirit or God. And when I can no longer express spirit constructively, I express it destructively, and disintegration takes place. I then pass to a plane where I can express the attributes of spirit, some of which are life, love, peace, health, and goodness. The Father established the principle of mathematics, the principle of love, the principle of motion, and many other principles, including the man principle. Man makes rules which he can change, but principles are made for man and are eternal, unchangeable. The Father established the man principle, self-acting, the only one that is self-acting. All the other principles depend upon the self-acting principle, man, to set them in motion. Man sets all other principles in motion by the word, by his thought. The underlying principle of all creation is the relation between the law and the word. Therefore, the law and the word go hand in hand and are inseparable. Read The Law and the Word by Troward. The law of correspondence shows mankind to be manifesting God on three principal planes: spirit, mind, and matter, one of which cannot exist without the other, yet most of us recognize but one. The materialist says, I am from Missouri, you have got to show me. Not having spiritual eyes to see spiritually, or a spiritual understanding to understand spiritually, not having mental conception of the Trinity Spirit, mind, and matter, he expects a physical explanation of things he does not understand. So works out his problems by the use of the five senses: hearing, seeing, feeling, tasting, and smelling. He clings to these and says, show me, notwithstanding the fact that he has heard noises that had no physical foundation, has seen things that did not exist on the physical plane, has felt things that had no reality in matter, has tasted both bitter and sweet from the same cup, and has been deceived by smell. He is of the earthly, asleep to the fact that these five senses have their correspondences in both the mental and spiritual worlds. These five senses are purely physical changes. Everything that changes is subject to the law of mind and spirit. Everything that changes had a beginning and consequently will have an ending. So everything that changes will sometime assume a different form. The five physical senses came with man's dual line of reasoning. Man's dual line of reasoning came with the fall of the canopy and the ending of the Garden of Eden period on earth. In the Garden of Eden period, there was no day and night, no positive and negative, no good and bad. Instead of looking at both ends of the carbon stick that gives electric light and making themselves miserable about which was the positive and which was the negative, they recognized only the dynamo and called it good. When the Garden of Eden period is restored on earth again, which according to the best of my knowledge and belief will be about 720 years from the commencement of this century, we shall have peace on earth, goodwill among men. It is referred to in the last of the 60th chapter of Isaiah. Violence shall no more be heard in the land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. The canopy will be restored as it is today around Jupiter, or as the rings around Saturn, and man will have returned to unity from whence he came. His line of thinking and reasoning will be along the line of unity instead of duality as it is today. The rise and fall of the canopy coincides with the glacial periods. To get a better idea of it, and what makes the Garden of Eden period and changes man's line of thought completely, read The Deluge by Isaac N. Vale. Everything is changed from one form to that of another by thought. The united thought of the world gives the cosmic or universal expression, and the individual thought the individual experiences. Everyone, including ourselves, is a prophet, and to know the future should reflect on the thoughts being put out and contemplate the physical expression they will be formed into. Job said, "The thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me." As with Job, so with you and I, for the spiritual sense is no respecter of persons, and works today for us the same as it did for Job. Contemplate for a moment the statement of being put out regularly by the Christian Science people. Quote, "There is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter. All is infinite mind and its infinite manifestations, for God is all in all. Spirit is the real and eternal, matter is the unreal and temporal. Spirit is God and man is his image and likeness. Therefore man is not material, he is spiritual." End quote. What is the psychology of this statement? The Bible, which is the rule and guide of many people, as well as the Christian Scientists, informs us that when 12,000 of each of the 12 tribes of Israel, from Revelation chapter 7, verse 2 through 9, the 12 classifications of mind, agree upon anything, it is born into physical manifestation. Thus, our cosmic expression brought to us. At the present time, there is a tremendous thought force, which is increasing all the time, changing matter into spirit. The denial of matter and the affirmation of spirit. What will be the result? Man, being the most movable thing upon the earth, should get in line with these influences and turn his attention to spiritual matters, or he himself will be turned into spirit. The next most movable thing to be affected by this line of thought is water. There has never been as much water on the earth and so little above the earth as in the past 2,000 years while the earth was passing through the constellation Pisces, the water sign. All improvements with water have come during this dispensation. All religions have symbolized the water. The people of this constellation have exemplified its characteristics by a belief in the adage, "Eat, drink, and be merry today, for tomorrow you may die." So the world has never been so well fed. This urge comes by the earth passing to the airy constellation Aquarius, where the influence is for airy and spiritual manifestation. This is necessary in order to strike a balance. As the earth is dematerialized by the thought expressed, the earth's attraction becomes less and less until the waters that rise above the earth remain and form a canopy which in time obscures the sun, and there is a continuous subdued light over the whole face of the earth. There will be no night there, for man has lost his dual line of reasoning and works out all his problems by the spiritual sense. Love, truth, life, harmony, mathematics, intuition, etc. All positive and all good. Here comes along a man created by the Lord God of the dust of the earth, as recorded in the second story of creation in Genesis, and says, "What about polarity? Opposite love is hate. Opposite truth is error. Opposite life is death. Opposite harmony is discord, and opposite true geometry is error." These opposites are all negative and come into expression as delusions, and can all be destroyed by recognition of the positive. It is impossible to destroy the principle of life. Death does not do it. It is impossible to destroy the principle of love. Hate cannot affect it. It is impossible for a negative principle to destroy a positive principle. The negative is subject to change. The positive is not. What does the principle of mathematics care about the mistakes you and I make in its use? The mistakes are to teach us the truth. They are to lead us to the Christ, and instead of complaining, we should be thankful for and profit by them. All mistakes in our life, all the ills from which we suffer, come from a negative line of thinking in ourselves or those with whom we associate. Eradicate from your mind and consciousness such words as don't and can't, and you will avoid much trouble. Never say to a person, "Don't do so and so," or "You can't do thus and so." I once heard a colored preacher explain the psychology of the word don't in a story of two families living side by side. One seemed to pass through this world with little or no trouble, and the other was full to overflowing. Both had little girls they were sending to the same school. One mother, after fixing the ribbon in her daughter's hair, starts her off to school with these words, "Run on to school now and don't get your feet wet." Possibly you and I have sent our children out with just such a command and then watched them deliberately wade through every puddle of water they came to. In fact, cross the street that they might obey our instructions. The word don't is negative, and the subconscious mind, or the heart, as the Bible puts it, receives only positive words, consequently gets the remainder of the sentence, "get your feet wet," and proceeds to obey. The other mother, after getting her little girl ready, starts her to school with these words, "Run to school, dear, and keep your feet dry." A positive command. The little girl goes hopping and skipping along to school, hitting all the high and dry places, has obeyed the command, and kept her feet dry. Then we wonder why our children cannot behave as well as Jones or Smiths. There is a reason. We have been looking everywhere but the right place for the reason, which we carry with us in our thoughts. 9/10 of all we do is done by using the instinctive mind, the mind which animals use, the beast mind. The instinctive mind is never a creator but a servant to execute what has been created for it. So we see unbelief is born of the consciousness of serving God rather than of that of being his son. While you are a servant, you are under the law. When you realize your sonship, then you use the law. The law is cosmic, impersonal, and eternal. When you use the law with the idea of becoming what you desire, then you will rise above things and become a son and heir to all good. The law flows from the word and not vice versa. When you speak a word or think a thought, you set the law in motion, and by that law you are rewarded or condemned. To live in the earthly consciousness is to live in the negative or shadow of things. To live in the sun or heavenly consciousness is to live in the positive and to be the light. The parable of the transfiguration on the mount, your mind, shows that man's identity is never lost, that the divine man is deathless, eternal. Christ represented the truth, Moses the law, and Elias the prophet. The three were so wonderful that the disciples desired to build 3 temples, one for each, but immediately law and prophet disappeared. Truth stood alone, and the voice said, "This is my beloved Son, hear him." Christ the prophet and the law abide in one temple. You are that temple. This explains to us that saying in the Book of Books, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Now, how does a man think in his heart? The thought that comes from the heart, or instinctive mind, or subconscious mind, is the finished product expressing itself. Of all animals, man is the only one having positive and negative use of mind. The negative reflects what the positive has created for it to reflect. So it is absolutely true that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. It is a reflection of what he does and is. And this can be better explained in the terms of the astrologer who uses physical manifestation to express spiritual meanings. Yet spiritual truths must be discerned spiritually. He says the moon mind is the reasoning, logical, analyzing mind from which all conceptions spring. This is the part of mind that enables man to cut down a tree and create a table. Animals have this part of mind only as they contain it from man, and they're not sufficient so they can bequeath it to their offspring, but they function with the instinctive mind only, which makes them what they are. This phase of mind is called by astrologers the sun mind. Everything is born into physical expression by or through the sun mind. The earth itself, all its manifestations of seasons and variety come in the same manner, which is the cosmic or universal expression of man, which is God made manifest. We are told, as in heaven so on earth. Alas, how little we all know about heaven. If this be true, and the Bible seems to be full of references to it, the study of the heavens should be man's greatest, most interesting, and useful study. It is said, order is heaven's first law. Surely the planets move in order, and the whole face of the heavens appear to be order of the highest degree. But is it so on earth? When we look at things on earth collectively, it has the appearance of order, for the seasons come and go with equal regularity. Abraham Lincoln said the majority of mankind are always right, so it would seem that discord is largely a factor with individuals and comes from ignorance. The moon mind governs all conception of worlds, everything therein contained, as well as you and me. Then there is the period of gestation, and then the birth. Everything comes into manifestation as you and I came, or as a crop of potatoes come. First, there is the conception, the planting of the seed, which is done in faith. Then the period of gestation or growth, wherein we have hope, and then the birth or harvest, showing the charity of an all-wise system of laws that work in an orderly fashion. There is no law of God or man until thought has put it into operation. Therefore, thought is the conception of all there is. Now, thought impresses the sun mind, as the astrologer would say, or the heart, as the Bible expresses it, or the subconscious mind, as the scientist would explain it. And whatever thought impresses this mind with, that is born into a manifestation. The laws are fixed and eternal, but man has to a certain extent the power to choose the thought that puts the law into motion. Many people rarely ever think with persistency. Think how much thought it takes to impress the subconscious mind of a child in teaching it to walk. We place the child against the wall or by a chair, hold out our hands and tell it to walk, not once or twice, but many times, until by the spoken word and by example, the heart of the child has grasped the idea. The seed has taken root when the child takes a step or two, and faith has forever planted upon its subconscious mind the fact that it can walk. Henceforth it walks by the power of the instinctive mind. 9/10 of all we do is brought into manifestation in the same manner, for we do not consciously and truly realize we are one with the Father, and can say with Jesus, I and my Father are one. But when we, understanding the law and putting it in operation as a little child, can take that first step, then faith, which is born of the substance we have impressed our heart or sun mind with, comes to our assistance, and we can do the things Jesus did, and greater things than these may we also do. One important thing to realize is the law of agreement. Everything comes into manifestation according to the law of agreement between the moon mind and the sun mind. This law of agreement strengthens or weakens our willpower to do things according as we keep or violate it. There is nothing we can do that will bring greater reward than to always keep our agreements, especially those we can make with ourselves. In the first place, avoid making agreements as much as possible, especially promising ourselves to do things, such as to rise at a certain hour and then fail to get up. But when they are made, be particular to see they're fulfilled. This creates harmony between the moon mind that promises, the sun mind that executes. Harmony being one of the first of the divine laws to observe and fulfill, all the inharmonious things in my life may be directly traced to the discord between the conceptive mind, which plants the seed, and the executive or subconscious mind that expresses the harvest and is governed by the sun influence. A number of years ago, an astrologer remarked that all our thought came from the sun. It has taken me some time to become conscious of the law that the sun mind expresses what we have created for it to express and nothing else. Under this influence, we are what our thoughts have made us. This law is good, and we are servants to the law when we fail to realize that thoughts are seeds that grow into material expression. Chapter 2. Evolution of Man. A quote by Pope. Know then thyself Presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man. The point within the circle is a good representation of man in his perfect state, when he realizes he is monarch of all he surveys and has complete control and absolute command and view of all contained within his circle, be that circle large or small. He is conscious of his unity with all. He is omnipresent to all and omnipotent to all. The circle cannot be made without the dot or someone to make it. Therefore, God and man have always been, are, now, and ever will be. Man is God made manifest. The following from the Aquarian Gospel gives the two viewpoints very nicely. Quote, among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Bharata Arabo. Together, Jesus and Bharata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets read the Vedas, the Avesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, man is the marvel of the universe. He is a part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and when he was a bit of formless substance in the mold of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in fleshy form and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as bird or beast or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved into the state of perfect man. And after man is in perfectness, he will be evolved to higher form of life. End of quote. And Jesus said, Bharata Arabo, who taught you this, that mind which is the man may manifest in flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing? Bharata said, from time which man remembers not, our priests have told us so, and so we know. And Jesus said, enlightened Arabo, are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows not by being told? Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know. You simply guess. Regard not then what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh, and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know time never was when man was not. Read Aquarian Gospel by Levi. Thus we see the reasoning portal mind, being negative, believes in everything of its kind, while the divine mind, intuition, knows man is, always was, and ever will be, I am. Therefore, I have a right to be. I am one with the complete whole. I am that I am. I am the light. I am the darkness. I am all. I am peace. I am health, for there is none else. I am pure because I am all. I am everywhere present. I am one with the Father. I am poise and power. I am good because I am all there is. I am, and there is none else besides me. When I lose consciousness of what I am, I become like the fishes in the sea looking for the water, like the birds of the air looking for the air, like the worm of the dust looking for the earth. I start out to travel on the level of time to an undiscovered country from which no traveler returns, never wishes to return, and cannot return if he would. That undiscovered country is truth. Truth as to what I am. In starting to travel on the level of time, I have divided my world into two parts, else how could I travel? I have not only divided my world into two parts, but I have divided myself into a twofold creature. The upper half I call day and the lower half I call night. The upper half I call summer and the lower half I call winter. The upper half I call light and the lower half I call darkness. The upper half I call heaven and the lower half I call hell. The upper half I call positive and the lower half I call negative. The upper half I call good and the lower half I call bad. All duality comes from this division which I, Adam, have created and I, Adam, have named. Whatever you and I agree to do and name, so the name shall be. Realizing that it takes both halves to make a complete circle, that night is just as necessary as day to complete the circle, that winter is equal to summer, that hell is as necessary as heaven to make a complete circle, and that they are only names I have given to my creating two parts of unity or the circle or myself. I therefore decide I must be just and impartial to each half, and say, I will not depart from a just recognition of the two parts, summer and winter, light and darkness, heaven and hell, good and bad, but will become conscious that I must use both, as both are a part of my complete whole, a part of my I am. I therefore set up the plumb line, symbol of justice, in the midst of Israel, and call it the basis upon which my world revolves. One end I call the North Pole, and the other end I call the South Pole. This divides my world into four parts. In looking at this division, I discover the four corners of the earth from which the four winds of heaven blow. I discover the four seasons of the year, which I, Adam, name spring, summer, autumn, and winter. I discover the 4 points of the compass by which I am to steer my craft or build my mansion true to the level, upright, and just before God and man. This is why we have 4 major prophets in our scriptures, one to represent each of the 4 quarters. Ezekiel is a good representative of spring, Daniel of summer, Isaiah of fall, and Jeremiah of winter. Our first division of the circle gave us male and female. This division gives us 4 distinct races of people in the world. The white people born at an equal distance from the equator to the poles, the black people born on or near the equator, the copper-colored people born near the South Pole, and the albinos or Eskimos born near the North Pole. Observing the effect of this division into seasons, I, Adam, you, and I divide nature into 4 principal substances, which we call fire, earth, air, and water. We give one of these substances to each of the 4 corners of the earth. The fire is given to spring, as it gives us energy to work, and we call the first quarter the quarter of labor. Then, as the heat of summer comes on, we relax from our labors and commence to gather the reward. As this reward is from the fruits of the earth, we say this quarter is governed by the earth, and while storing away its fruits, we call this the quarter of wealth. The autumnal equinox, having a sufficiency of wealth to last us through the year, we have time to contemplate our fall from unity to duality, and from duality to that of a 4-sided being, when we realize all 4 sides are necessary to make a complete circle. This we call the quarter of knowledge. As we come to and pass the winter solstice, we become more and more conscious that as we have divided the world, so we ourselves have become divided. For the world is only a reflection of what we are. And we feel thankful for the quarter that gave us labor, for the quarter that gave us wealth, for the quarter that gave us knowledge, and that we are now alive in the quarter of love. We read the 12th chapter of the 1st Corinthians and give thanks some more, for we know it would be impossible to live without the remaining parts of the circle. Thus by love, we are brought back to unity. Matter is not an originating power. It is neutral, a means of manifestation of power that is within every one of us. We can change it from one form to that of another, or dissolve it into spirit, but must work with the cosmic law and not in opposition to it, as everything comes by the law of agreement. Matter is necessary to differentiate, Were there no expression in solid of substance, things would be perpetually flowing into each other, and there would be no means of glorifying the Father. Bear in mind this fact, and let it sink deep into your conscience that 9/10 of all you do is done by agreement between the reasoning moon mind and the executive sun mind, and the law governing these two minds is simply the law of suggestion, nothing more or less. How does the foul air of a room become pure? By mingling with more air. The same with a stream of water. The same with you and I. The best man can be no better than all. The meanest man can be no worse than all. Should he shut himself up and become a pessimist by his false line of thinking, then let him follow the example of the air or the brook and flow among the stream of humanity until he is in his thought as good as the whole, for he is just as necessary to complete the circle as any part of it. This law of love shows that the four quarters are all necessary to be recognized, for everything comes into expression through the law of agreement. True labor is that which benefits all. True wealth is that which all can enjoy. True knowledge comes from universal experience, and true love is that which takes in the whole circle. Any exception to this is vanity and vexation of spirit. In a further contemplation of my work of creation, I observe I started at one-ment with the Father, unity, the only one and true God, and became a twofold being, positive and negative. These two principles I must give to all my future creations. In setting up the plumb line, I have 4 equal parts, 2 of each, positive and negative. I now wonder why I skipped the Trinity and tried to place the triangle in the circle. This I cannot do while I am the center unity. If I do it as soon as I have divided my world and myself into 2 distinct parts, I create a 4-fold being of unequal proportions as shown in the cut following. Then when I undertake to place the triangle, the trinity of spirit, mind, and matter, in the 4-fold division, I have 6 unequal parts upon which the 4 cannot agree, and to have it lasting, it must come by agreement with all. By adding another triangle, I have 8 parts of unity, or the circle, but they are not equal. So I add the other triangles and become a 12-fold being of 30 degrees each, all equal and all having the same power and efficiency. Here we see the fallacy of the Trinity. It is a delusion and a snare invented by the 12-sided expression of man. At unity, you are conscious of nothing but God. Some think it should be spelled good. At the second stage, you are conscious of the principle of positive and negative and of the law of agreement to make all good. At the third, you become conscious of the 4 elements. Then the 12-fold expression of God becomes rapidly, and we see man as he is today. His evolution has all been by agreement with all. Every person in the world is a representative of someone of these 12. So positive is this that we all have marks, moles, or scars upon our person that designate to which one we belong. This is also indicated by our classification of mind, by our likes, and even by the clothes we wear. This can all be proven to your entire satisfaction by a short study of the heavens as applied to man. We find that the elements of fire, earth, air, and water, which we gave to the 4 corners of the earth, came into existence by our thinking. That thought formed the substance from spirit to make the physical expression. That the fallacy of spirit, mind, and matter has entered into all our creations since we left unity. Knowing that the law is, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened to you, we first asked for light, started to travel in search of it. The heavens opened and we received our reward according to the law. So fire is the first of the physical manifestations brought to our consciousness. Therefore, we place the triangle in the circle, starting with the fire at the vernal equinox. Here we have the circle divided into 3 equal parts, which we call Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japhet. giving 1/3 of the circle or 120 degrees or years of age to each. This division of the circle cannot stand being tested by the law of agreement. Realizing, therefore, that we have been partial to our firstborn element and in agreement with all, we give the triangle to each element as each are using it. This divides the circle into 12 equal parts of 30 degrees each. We went from unity to duality, from duality to quadrant or fourfold being. From quartet to a being of 12 distinct parts, each depending upon the other, to give a perfect expression of God or a complete circle. As in heaven, so on earth, these 12 parts we call the 12 sons of Jacob, or the 12 tribes of Israel, represented by the 12 months of the year on earth and the 12 constellations of the zodiac in the heavens. The picture of the man in our almanacs, the sky man, is the spiritual man of 12 parts. The 12 constellations in the heavens represent the mental man of 12 parts. While you and I each carry around with us the physical man composed of 12 distinct parts, each dependent upon the other. What could the hand do without the head, or the head without the feet, or how could we build a complete circle with one section missing? This is what some of us are trying to do. We devote our whole being, soul, mind, and body to the quarter of labor, and disregarding the other 3/4, become morose and say, life is not worth living. It is made up of a hard work. When will we wake up and learn that man does not live by bread alone or by work alone? That there is a time for everything under the sun, that it is a sin to labor more than 1/4 of our time and neglect the remaining 3 parts of our being. Others of us devote all our energies to the piling up of what labor has created, not caring whose labor it is so long as we can get it to pile up. This is also a vexation of spirit, for what does it profit a man if he pile up the wealth of the world and lose his own soul? We are so engrossed in this piling up process, thinking it will give us happiness and pleasure, that we do not realize we have a soul. We think the God of Mammon is the only God worthwhile, never realizing that to create happiness and pleasure, it is as necessary for the people manifesting on the other 3/4 to have wealth as it is for us, for they are part of our being as much as the hand is a part of our body. Still, others devote their time to the pursuit of knowledge, not realizing what knowledge is. They're chasing the counterfeit and think knowledge can be gleaned from books, which is a fallacy, for books only give us the opinions of others, and our great inventor Edison once said, 2/3 of my life has been spent in following up false theories in scientific textbooks. This means that as far as Mr. Edison was concerned, 2/3 of all our scientific knowledge was false. What an opening for people who think and experiment and do things. All the knowledge we have is of the things we do. The more things you do, the more knowledge you will have. The more things you do for the benefit of all the people who compose the circle, the more happiness you will have. Never lose sight of the circle of which you are a part, and which you are continually contributing to and drawing from. There are also a class of people who are manifesting on the quarter of love and who do not have a conscious idea of what love is. They're chasing the counterfeit. There is but one sin in the world, and that is ignorance. Ignorance of what God is and of God's laws. If you know not God or his laws, how can you obey them? The giving of alms, exhorting people to be good according to your standard, or the desire of our beastly natures to possess, is only the counterfeit of love. It is said love covers a multitude of sins, and it certainly does when it extends entirely around the circle and takes in your brother, every person you meet, or of whom you think is your brother. Love that is universal knows God is good and all is for the best, that all partial evil is universal good, knows that both halves of the circle are good, and that each one of us must manifest on both halves. Knows that all 4 quarters are good and that we cannot monopolize one to the exclusion of the others. Knows that the law of God is perfect and it applies to all divisions of the circle. This also explains why cosmic law is good and why it is necessary. No one, not even God himself, can give us something we will not have. We asked for light, searched for it, and were brought into it by our own request. Then we agreed, one half with the other, to set up a plumb line and created the quarters. Then the quarters agreed to the names by which they should be known and also agreed to establishing the triangle and the further division. Then, to be just to all, they agreed to create a triangle for each of the elements, and from that day to this the 12 divisions of the one mind, God, has agreed to every cosmic manifestation of which we have any knowledge. Were this not so, each of us would have a different name for a chair and for everything else. A chair is called a chair for the simple reason that the 12 divisions of the one mind have agreed to call it a chair. It is so with everything the Adam man has named. All came by agreement. That there are 12 classifications of mind can be conclusively proven by 1 year's study of the influence of the sun, moon, and stars. St. John explains something of this law of agreement when he speaks of 144,000 being sealed in their foreheads. This is what it takes to make a cosmic expression, when the rest of the world is brought under the influence. An agreement of 1,200 of each of the 12 tribes of Israel, which we are, brings into manifestation the thing we agree upon. 144,000 thought war. By their thoughts, sealed it in their foreheads. That is agreed upon war, and war we had. It came by agreement according to a just and immutable law. It continued until the energy of that thought spent its force, or was overcome by the thought of peace. When Florence Crawford, editor of Comfort, was asked by one in her audience, "When will peace come?" she replied, "I do not know, but people may want peace so long and with such an intense desire that when it does come, it will last for 1,000 years. Individually, peace comes to you and I just as soon as we set the law in motion to create it. Leave every person free to work out their problems as they think best. Remember, when you restrict or bind a person in your thought or speech, you yourself are bound and can never attain much success in occult or divine knowledge until you leave people free. The beast mind tries to control. The divine mind leaves people free." End of chapter. Chapter 3. Fate or Pessimism versus Optimism. A quote by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. "One ship sails east and another sails west, by the self-same wind that blows. It is not the gale, but the set of the sail, that tells us the way they go." End of quote. It is not the gale or our environments that count, but our viewpoint. The manner in which we meet the gales or trim our sails and sail east to rise with the sun of success and prosperity, or sail west to go down in the darkness of despondency, gloom, and oblivion, is what counts. The viewpoint makes us what we are. For in everything that happens, there is some good to some one. An old Irish lord commenced to produce his family rather late in life, and when the first child was born, he was anxious to know the boy's future, so he consulted an eminent astrologer and had his horoscope cast and the future probabilities foretold. The astrologer shook his head and said he was sorry to say the boy was born to become a beggar. The old gentleman thought that could be overcome with his entailed estate. 2 years later, another son came to bless the honest old Irish couple, for all children are a blessing if we make them so. Going to the astrologer for his judgment of the boy's future, he was told that this son had the planets in such a position at his birth that he would probably be a thief. The stern and austere father thought he could take that out of him and train him in the way he should go. 2 years later, a third son was born, who it was hoped would have more fortune prospects, but when the astrologer was consulted, he seemed sad and reluctantly informed the anxious father that his son would be a murderer. Not being sure he could overcome this influence and magnifying the unfavorable predictions concerning the other two boys, not having been taught that man is greater than the influence of the sun, moon, and stars, and can create the environment that surround him and shape his destiny as he wills, he decided to move to America, where the family name was not so well known, and the disgrace would be easier to bear. He began preparations for the removal. An old and trusted servant, seeing his master bowed down with grief, and the unusual preparation going on, asked him what the trouble was about. He explained all the astrologer had predicted concerning the boys, and was surprised to hear him remark that he need not move on that account, for those conditions could all be met in a manner pleasing as well as satisfactory. He said, "The boy who is to be a beggar, we will educate for a priest. The boy who is to become a thief, we will make a lawyer, and the boy who is to do the murdering, we will make him a doctor. They can all rise in their professions and be an honor to the name they bear." Here we see a vast difference between the pessimistic view of the father and the optimistic view of the servant. One made himself miserable by taking a wrong view of life, while the other thought this old world was a pretty good place to live in. So it is with you and I. Thoughts are things which make us what we are and show how to meet gales. Which are you looking for, the donut or the hole? And what is fate? The conventional definition for fate is a decree pronounced by God. How does God pronounce a decree? Again, fate is defined as inevitable, necessary, the appointed lot. 3 goddesses were supposed to determine the course of human life. In this day of religious awakening, we hear a great deal about there is no death. It is gradually growing in the consciousness of all that death is only a change from one form of manifestation to that of another, and that the I am in each of us comes back into physical manifestation in a very short space of time. So death is only change, and mankind is fated to change, but he was given the power to make changes. By the use of that power, when recognized and impressed upon his heart, subconscious mind, he could determine what the change shall be and when it shall take place. Most astrologers arrive at a place where they believe life is foreordained, and they are fated to do certain things. This is only true insofar as all of us are fated to manifest what we have created and nothing else. They believe in fate for the reason that they are able to predict events in their own lives and in the lives of others with such accuracy. This is because all persons are prophets and are continually prophesying their own creation. When a person lets his thoughts come and go, ignorant of the source from whence they come and what effect they are having in the world, then he manifests the things predicted by material mind, for he is using the beast mind only. For a number of years I held to this erroneous belief, but 15 years' study of the spiritual planet Neptune has shown me the fallacy. Theodore Frank Allen, the astrologer, and his late booklet says, "I maintain that fate is inevitable and unescapable. There is not and there could not be any way short of suicide, if even that, by which I could have escaped from, evaded, or even modified the intensely severe planetary vibrations that have culminated for me during the spring of 1918. Such horoscopic conditions are just as inevitable as the rising and setting of the sun and the regular return of the seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter." Just above he quotes from Emerson, "Fate, then, is a name for facts not yet passed under the fire of thought, for causes which are unpenetrated." Emerson probably meant that fate is the manifestation of thoughts as they are born into existence. Another astrologer, Henry Hodges, quotes an old proverb from Hypatia, which reads thus: "Look, the clay dries into iron, but the potter molds the clay. Destiny today is master. Man was master yesterday." Thus are we masters of our tomorrow, however much we may be hampering today by the result of our yesterday. Do not complain about what you are manifesting today, but sow seed for a better condition tomorrow. Console yourself by the thought that, as most happiness comes by comparison, your unfavorable experiences today are but a contribution to the happiness of the world. For who is there among us who has not pointed to some unfortunate creature and exclaimed, "I thank God, or my lucky stars, that I am not in a similar condition"? God created the man principle. He created that principle good and pronounced it very good. The man principle that God created is not like the principle of love, or the principle of mathematics, or of music, or of attraction, or the many other principles God created. A principle is not like a rule. Mankind makes rules which he can change at will, but principle is laid down for the use and benefit of man, and is eternal, unchangeable, positive divine law. The man principle is self-acting, while all the other principles depend upon the self-acting principle to set them in motion. The self-acting principle, man, sets the other principles in motion by the word. Thus the law and the word are inseparable. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. One of our great hindrances has been a lack of knowledge concerning the beginning. The ever-present now is the beginning of creation. We have the choosing of the Word that sets the law in motion, that makes the manifestation some people call fate. If Mr. Allen or anyone else thinks he is a picture of bad luck, that thought makes it so, but no one is fated to think such thoughts. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Put out the thought today that will make your tomorrows a pleasing manifestation, and if it is not as good as you would like it, resolve to build better and better, ever remembering the circle of which you are a part, and that an injury to one is the concern of all. When at unity, there is no such thing as fate, for I and my Father are one. When I divide myself into two parts, I am fated to enjoy or suffer from each part as I think. There is nothing in this world but what thinking makes it so. When I become a fourfold being, I am fated to enjoy the season I like best and suffer from the one I dislike the most. I am fated to enjoy the things I name good and suffer from the things I call bad. When I am manifesting 1/112th part of the circle, I am fated to enjoy the things I think good for all the circle, and suffer because I selfishly desire to benefit only from the degrees on which I am manifesting. I have violated my agreement to be just and recognize all. Whatever my fate, it comes through a just law to teach me that all partial evil is universal good, and that the closer I apply the golden rule in my thoughts and actions, the more pleasing will be my fate. Why is there such a thing as the law of agreement? Because man has divided himself into a being of many parts. The more parts we divide ourselves into, the more we need the law of agreement, and the harder it is to get results by the application of the law. Amos says, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" It is necessary to understand how to agree with the self before we can expect to agree with others. How has man been divided into a being of many parts? Infinity must be unity. It does not matter what your conception of God is. It must be unity, or else it is a false God. We cannot separate God. Look at the circle with the dot. See a representation of God the Father and God the Son. The circle representing God the Father and the dot, God the Son, or look at the dot as God, the Father, and the circle as the sons of God, realizing that you are only a part of that circle until you become conscious of absolute unity. When you can say, I and my Father are one, as did Jesus. At unity, God and man are one. They are at agreement. As soon as we separate or divide ourselves into two parts, duality appears where each member is limited by the other. It is man that is divided, not God. Here's where the law of agreement comes in. One half must agree with the other half, or else create a false God, or create a God and a devil. The devil is only a false god of man's creation, and man has divided his God in order to create him. He has violated the first commandment, Thou shalt have no other gods before me. In the book of Matthew 18 through 19 says, Again, I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. Here we see it is better to agree and get what we want than to call the other fellow's God a devil and disagree. Mankind was not satisfied to make this one division, but has further divided himself. So we have 4 parts of unity, where God and man were one. You divided yourself by a belief in duality. Become a 4-fold being by a belief in the seasons and the 4 elements in nature, a 12-fold being by belief in the Trinity, or a being of 72 parts when the dominant thought of your life is confined within the 5 physical senses. The majority of mankind today are manifesting under the belief in the Trinity, spirit, mind, and matter, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, positive, negative, and the product. This makes us a 12-fold being because everything good or bad comes by agreement. No matter how much man divides himself, he must get enough people representing different parts of the circle to agree in order to secure manifestation. After you have made one division of the circle, it is impossible to divide by 3 and get equal proportions until you have 12 parts. People who do not believe in spirit, mind, and matter, but think the 5 physical senses are the only standard to judge by, are classed as idolaters, for they are not creators. They are servants of God and not sons of God. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 6:16, And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. A son of God is a creator and is a free man. He uses the law of agreement, connects up with the whole circle, and is one with the Father. A servant of God is lacking in understanding, is not a free man, nor a creator, but uses only the things that are created for him to use. He is in bondage to the law. Most of us are in bondage to the law because we must learn the law before we can use it. The law is passive until set in motion by the Word. The Word, or our thought, creates ideas which are the seed that in time will produce the manifestation. Jules Verne's 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea was born into a real live manifestation 50 years after it was written. So with our thoughts, if we use the law of agreement. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 25 says, Agree with thine adversary quickly while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officers, and thou be cast into prison. Then get out of his way as quickly as possible if his thoughts are not positive and uplifting to all of mankind. If much in his society, you will be manifesting his thoughts and complaining of your hard luck or misfortune. An agreement with 144,000 brings cosmic or unity universal manifestation. When you promise yourself to do something, one part of your being has agreed with another part, and it is imperative that you keep the agreement if you wish to build up your willpower to do things in this world. Avoid making agreements as much as possible, but when you do make them, keep them. or cease to complain if you reap what you have sown and do not like the harvest. End of chapter. Chapter 4, Philology. This is a wonderful field for investigation from several points of view. The number of letters in a word determines its value. The pronoun I is made the same as the figure 1 and has the same value and significance. It is the only letter in our alphabet which alone stands for something. I, the one and only God, represented by the dot. All through the scriptures, this is called God the Son. God the Father is represented by the circle and has been so in every religion of which we have any knowledge, Christian or pagan. The circle with one division symbolizes all words of 2 letters. It is all there is. Taken with the dot, we have the greatest positive statement known to mankind. I am. Repeat this as often as you can in all your remarks, but when you use it in connection with a promise, be sure to keep and fulfill that promise if you wish to build up your willpower to do things in this world. The next positive division of the circle is the 4 quarters, which give us all words of 4 letters. The English word for deity is God, a word of 3 letters, but we are told God is good, God is love, or God is life. All words of 4 letters. God, the word of 3 letters, was given by the 12-fold expression which it represents, for it must be transmuted into this expression to fulfill the law of agreement. It is used on account of its Kabbalistic meaning. G is the 7th letter of the alphabet. O is the 15th, and D the 4th. When added together, they make a total of 26, or all the letters there are. So God in English represents everything that can be described by the 26 letters of our alphabet. It is a remarkable fact, however, that the name of deity is spelled with 4 letters in most of the languages of civilized peoples. In Latin, it is Deus, Greek, Jove or Zeus. In Hebrew, has the 4 letters, or Adon. Syria, Adad. Arabian, Allah. Persian, Sirah. Tartarian, Idga. Egyptian, Aman or Ptah. Indian, Aum or Zot. East India, Ezgi or Zeni. Japanese, Zain. Turkish, Adi. Scandinavian, Odin. Icelandic, Tivi. Croatian, Doga. Dalmatian, Rot. Tyrrhenian, Eher. Etrurian, Trur. Margarian, Oesi. German, Gott. French, Dieu. Spanish, Dios. Peruvian, Lain. Thus are the 4 quarters honored with a letter for each, or taking the circle with the 12 divisions, 1 letter for each of the 4 elements. All words of 3 letters can be transmuted by an agreement with 12 people. Now take the negative number 5. It takes 72 times 5 before an equal division of the circle can be made. And to get an agreement with 72 people is quite difficult. So we say, all people who believe they should work out their life problems by the 5 senses or by using words of 5 letters are using the beast mind and know not God or his laws. Do not realize they are creatures and use things that are brought into manifestation on the material plane for them to use. These are the people who follow along conventional lines and never have an idea of their own. 7 is quite a prophetic number, which the 12-fold being, for in passing around the circle, 7 brings you to a point opposite that from which you started. You reach your polarity or the negative influence. This is the point from which your creations return to you, be they good or bad. In 7 months, or in passing through that part of the circle from the vernal equinox in the spring to the autumnal equinox in the fall, we have the creation of the fruits of the earth and the month of rest or thankfulness, the ingathering of God's bounty, and the reward of our faith and labors. Faith and works always go together. Following the month in which the autumnal equinox takes place, we have 5 months of winter, when God destroys that which has been created, so that a new heaven and a new earth may be brought forth. So it is with us. 7 days, months, or years of constructive thinking, then 5 of adjustment, that a better and grander expression of God can be brought forth. This has been made necessary by our own conceit, by our failing to recognize God as the only power and the only presence. All people are a part of our unity and necessary to our fullest expression of God. An injury to one is an injury to all. The one perfect church that John the Revelator speaks of was one having 12 letters, Philadelphia, the complete circle. Start your letters at the vernal equinox. Adam, 4-letter. Use the map in the 4-part of the book. Commence at the right and count up. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, fire. Earth, air, and water, all there is of material substance. So the Adam man is the flesh and blood man, created from the fruits of the earth, made of the dust of the earth, which he has been a long number of years in consuming, and which returns to dust when the spirit is through using it to express itself. Now take the sentence, God the Son. 3 words of 3 letters each. 9 letters. 9 months from conception to birth. 9 days, months, or years for our thoughts to be born into manifestation. If we are in that consciousness, a period of gestation necessary to make a complete circle. In the 9 months from conception to birth, we, each of us, have passed through 9 classifications of mind, or 9 points in the circle of the 12-fold being. There are 3 other necessary to complete our perfect number when we become so highly developed that we use the entire circle in all we do and work out every problem by intuition. God the Father, 12 letters, or a complete circle. All of Jesus' instantaneous healings were made in the name of the Father. He connected up with the complete circle. The starting point used in the stories of the Bible are from both equinoxes. That of Abram starts with the fall equinox, when the covenant gave him and his descendants, the people of the following 5 months or constellations, all the land. Abram, 5 letters, takes in the winter months or constellations. When he came to the spring equinox, the covenant was renewed, and his name changed to Abraham, a word of 7 letters, representing all the people born in the following 7 months or under the 7 summer constellations. This shows plainly the 2 covenants, and the 2 names have the land to all the people born during the 12 months. That is as much of it as they could use, no more. The control of land for which you have no use is in direct opposition to the teaching of the Bible and is the foundation of every monopoly under the sun. Only people who are worshiping the god of Mammon have a desire to control all the land. The control of land will shortly be spoken of as a relic of a barbarous age, for the god of Mammon has been deposed in the heavens, and the spiritual God who recognizes the brotherhood of man and justice is pouring out his influence upon earth at the present time, and woe to him who does not fall in tune with the infinite. While the nations come and go, words never change but go on forever. There are more than 300 words used in common by all peoples in the world, and each have a certain influence. God's laws are fixed, unchangeable, positive, the same yesterday, today, and forever. These laws are no respecter of persons and work for people who are considered both good and bad with equal regularity and results. The rain descends upon the just and the unjust. Good and bad are relative terms of the same thing, the positive and negative. We are all bad when we say 2 and 2 are 5, but as soon as we repent and say 2 and 2 equal 4, we have earned and reaped the reward that is in store for the just. So it is with all of God's laws. An eminent leader in the Methodist Church once said he had tried hard all his life to use scriptural language, but the vernacular of the street would creep in spite of all he could do. The 12th chapter of Judges says, 40 and 2,000 of the Ephraimites fumbled at the word and in consequence lost their lives. You and I may not be so placed that we would lose our lives if we fumbled at the word, but every negative statement we make brings an unfavorable condition to be overcome, or to be blotted out, the same as we blot out our mathematical errors. While correcting errors, we should think positive, constructive thoughts. They will give us abundant life, wealth, and happiness. Therefore, it is important that we be as near letter perfect in all scriptural statements we use as possible. It is also important that when we have been posted in spiritual statements, we use them as often as possible in all our conversation. For the use of words makes us what we are, ever bearing in mind, the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The study of mathematics and the zodiac will help cultivate intuition. The study of the zodiac is knowledge of things to come, and undoubtedly is the most sublime, the most interesting, and the most useful science cultivated by man. Our faculties are enlarged by the grandeur of the ideas it conveys, our minds exalted above the prejudices of the ignorant, and our understanding convinced of the existence, wisdom, power, and immutability of a supreme being. It is one of the earliest sciences cultivated by man, and the plan by which everything is brought into manifestation is contained in its teachings. This is why people who are teaching illusions are opposed to an investigation of it. It is a science that cannot be exploited, consequently has no place in a religion based on dollars. Meditation is also good, but one should never argue against the divine self regarding intuition. When it is recognized, act. Reason comes from the moon mind and builds conscience, which is negative and secretive. This is why there is so much variance in conscience. Intuition is absolute knowledge and knows no law except the law of self-expression. It is neither argumentative nor resistant. It is a positive affirmation that comes to all alike, to some much stronger than others. It, like music or love, can be cultivated, first by recognition, second by acting when it comes, third by appreciation. The more you can be thankful for the benefits received by acting on intuition, the more intuition you will have to be thankful for, such as the law. Prayer is one of the best means of concentration, and Jesus gave some splendid lessons on how to pray. In prayer, as in everything else, there is a satisfying way and a way that brings no such result. There is a distinct line between the two. One is to recognize and make your prayer for the benefit of the whole circle, your complete self, thinking only of your perfect state, of God, the spiritual man, of every good thing a God should be. If you are a bruised finger, the other 11 parts of you are so perfect that the bruised finger detracts very little from the complete whole, and if you recognize the perfectness of the complete whole, the bruised finger is as perfect as the rest. It is cured. 2 things in all your prayers to remember: recognition and thankfulness. If on the contrary your prayer is of the material, individual, and the material world, you have circumscribed your thinking power to a very small part of you. You may get results on one plane of your being, but it is always at the expense of some other and is never satisfying. Quit naming negative things, and the world will rise up and call you blessed and crown you with an everlasting crown of love. To me, the worst sinners are those who are continually naming negative or unreal things, continually talking disease in all its forms, thereby creating those conditions to be manifested by themselves and their hearers. And Jesus said, "Deny that which is evil." Only those who use the beast mind, the instinctive mind, with no knowledge whatever of right thinking or of God and His laws, talk disease. Whenever you talk disease, you are a sinner and are apt to be shunned by the right thinking people, by people who are trying to think positive thoughts, that harmony may come here on earth as it is in the heavens. The recognition that thoughts have an effect for good or ill, as being taught by many societies and cults, will bring the manifestation about much greater, sooner, and easier than it could have been done a few years ago, so that with every succeeding month and year we should all become more and more conscious of what the fruit of our thoughts will be, and strive to think only about the things we would like to see or be, ever remembering that education in things spiritual comes through experience and demonstration. What would the life of Jesus be without the healing? Manifestation of good to others is the sign following the right understanding of divine principle. End of chapter. Let's head over to the next video where we continue with the book titled Which? Impulse, Instinct, or Intuition by Charles Tussie Taylor.